Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere the air smells faintly of ambrosia and ozone, where clouds drift like silk curtains around glittering marble halls, and every argument somehow turns into a thunderstorm. You're climbing Mount Olympus, the alleged home of the gods, and if you thought your last family group chat was chaotic, well, you probably won't survive this dinner party. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, as always, drop your location and local time in the comments so I know where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand in the marble courtyard of Olympus, where the air buzzes with divine static. Gold columns glint, nymphs glide past carrying trays of nectar, and somewhere, a distant harp plays a tune that feels both eternal and slightly off-key, because Hermes is probably using it to annoy someone again. You'd expect perfection here, right? The home of gods, polished and harmonious. But no, this is the most dysfunctional household in the cosmos. Everywhere you look, there's petty drama disguised as divine policy. Over by the reflecting pool, Hera scowls at Zeus's latest disguise, a swan, really? Across the terrace, Athena eyes Poseidon like he just double-dipped his trident in her hummus. Even the muses whisper about who's him got fewer sacrifices last month. It's less holy pantheon, more eternal high school reunion. Historians still argue whether the Greek myths were moral lessons or just ancient gossip passed around campfires. But one thing's clear, the ancients understood something modern humanity never stopped loving: spectacular, petty conflict. You can almost hear the ancient bards leaning in, whispering, "Wait until you hear what Hera did next." Imagine Zeus himself, the supposed ruler of order, sitting on his golden throne, pretending to mediate. His robe is flawless, his beard perfectly storm cloud white, but you can see the eye twitch when someone mentions fidelity. He's supposed to maintain cosmic balance, yet he's the reason half of Greece's heroes exist and half its goddesses need therapy. Hera doesn't shout anymore, she's evolved past that. Her revenge comes wrapped in polite smiles and strategically timed plagues. The Olympians take grudges seriously. A mortal might hold a grudge for a lifetime, these beings hold them for eternity. You'd think immortality would mellow them out, but it just gives them infinite time to plan comebacks. You start to realize Olympus isn't a shining temple, it's reality TV with lightning effects. Somewhere near the edge of the clouds, Aphrodite lounges, inspecting her reflection in a bronze mirror. She's plotting a minor curse for whoever dared call her overrated. Apollo tunes his lyre but keeps glancing at Hermes, who's smirking in a way that says, "I definitely did something you'll find out about later." Ares flexes abs no one asked to see, while Hephaestus rolls his eyes so hard you can hear the metal grind, and then there's Dionysus, half smiling, half asleep, spilling wine as he explains to a satyr why hangovers are a philosophical experience. The gods don't get drunk the way mortals do. They get existentially intoxicated. When they argue, it's never just about who's right, it's about who gets remembered in marble. You walk through the Hall of Thrones. 12 massive seats curve around a central brazier, each engraved with scenes of triumph and humiliation. The carvings are more like receipts, each god's greatest moment etched permanently into the decor. But look closer, under the gold leaf, the cracks are everywhere. Maybe it's just age. Or maybe even divine egos can't keep their foundation stable forever. A quirky detail most people forget: Mount Olympus wasn't originally imagined as a real place. In early Greek belief, it was above the physical sky, almost like a floating dimension. Later poets plopped it onto a mountain in northern Greece because, well, tourists need directions. So if you ever visit the real Mount Olympus, remember, you're technically standing beneath the world's most passive-aggressive landlord dispute. You hear laughter echoing down the marble corridors, bright, musical, and a little cruel. That's how it always starts here: a joke, a boast, a tiny spark of pride that ignites centuries of divine pettiness. They're immortal, but their egos are tissue thin. And that's what makes it so oddly comforting. If even gods can't resist jealousy, pride, or the urge to one-up their relatives, maybe humanity's not doing so badly. A faint rumble of thunder rolls through the sky. Someone's annoyed again. Maybe it's just weather, or maybe it's Zeus finding out that someone mentioned Hera's name in a love poem. Lightning flickers at the horizon, like Olympus blinking irritably. You pass a fresco on the wall, gods locked in argument, each painted in gold leaf so bright it almost blinds you. A line of text underneath reads, "Even the divine must quarrel to know they exist." Poets were deep like that. Or maybe that was just their way of saying, the gods are dramatic, and we love the drama. In the end, you realize Olympus isn't about perfection. It's about performance. Every rivalry, every betrayal, every over-the-top punishment, it's divine theater. The ancients didn't worship flawless beings, they worshipped the reflection of themselves magnified in mythic proportions. Maybe that's why these stories still echo, because we all secretly love watching chaos from a safe distance. You step closer to the throne of Zeus, carved from solid gold and framed by eagle wings. A single olive branch rests beside it, a peace offering from Athena, maybe. Or a taunt from Poseidon. Hard to tell here. Somewhere in the distance, a voice like rolling thunder mutters, "We shall see who the mortals honor more." You can't tell which god said it, because, honestly, it could be any of them. The grudges of Olympus are older than stone and brighter than lightning, and tonight, you're going to wander through every single one. The thing about Olympus, besides the eternal glow and casual thunderstorms, is that drama always starts at home. Don't mix business with pleasure. The gods tossed that advice into a volcano. No pair proved it better than Zeus and Hera, the celestial couple who turned eternity into one long, awkward dinner party. You feel the tension before you see them. The air thickens, a peacock shrieks somewhere, sounding judgmental. Hera sits poised at one end of the marble table, smile sharp enough to draw blood. Zeus lounges opposite, trying to look innocent, an extreme sport for him. They're mythology's ultimate power couple, but calling them happily married is like calling volcanic eruptions heated discussions. Their union has always been devotion mixed with rivalry and world-shaking bickering. Scholars still argue whether Hera married Zeus for love, duty, or strategy. Early myths made her his equal, later ones turned her into the embodiment of divine fury. Not without reason, Zeus had more romantic aliases than disguises: bulls, swans, golden rain. Imagine finding out your husband turned into livestock again. Tonight, you watch from the shadows. Hera's calm tone means danger. "A swan, my dear." "Truly," she says, swirling her wine like it might become poison. Zeus sighs. "It's called strategy." The other gods lean in. Hermes whispers to Apollo, 5 drachmas says she turns his mistress into a cow. Apollo grins. "You're on." Their quarrels never stay verbal. They fight with storms, oaths, and mortals' fates. Once, Hera tricked Zeus into swearing the next of his bloodline would rule the heavens, then delayed his heir's birth and rushed another's. Result, Zeus fuming, Hera smug, mortals suffering. Zeus retaliated in kind. When he fancied Io, he turned her into a cow to hide her. Hera sweetly asked for the cow as a gift and set a 100-eyed guard over her. Love, Olympian style. When Argus died, Hera placed his eyes on her peacock's feathers, a reminder that she's always watching, and her vengeance. Long-form art. When Heracles, Zeus's illegitimate son, was born, Hera didn't kill him, she made his whole life an obstacle course. That's divine pettiness perfected, yet for all the chaos, Zeus and Hera always circle back. Call it toxic immortality. He strays, she retaliates, then they build temples together. Mortals still pray to them for marriage blessings, blissfully unaware they're invoking celestial mutual assured destruction. There's comfort in the dysfunction. Olympus needs tension. If everyone forgave each other, the mountain might collapse from disbelief. Their myth mirrors humanity itself: power, pride, love, betrayal. In Hera, the devoted yet punished wife; in Zeus, the patriarch, commanding and flawed; lightning flashes, Zeus's patience snapping. The sky growls. Hera doesn't flinch. "You always resort to theatrics," she says, cool as marble. Hermes whispers, "Round goes to Hera." Some say they reconciled, others think they just learned to disguise revenge as policy. But you doubt it. Eternity is too long to forgive. You step away as thunder fades through the golden halls. Below, mortal fires flicker. Tiny cities praying to gods who can't agree on anything but power. Lovers whisper vows to Hera, kings to Zeus. The irony writes itself. Maybe that's Olympus's secret: power doesn't kill love, it just makes it impossible, and as thunder fades, you hear the sea rising. A trident gleams below the clouds. Another feud is waking. The wind shifts, damp, briny, faintly electric, like a storm debating whether to arrive or just loom. You follow the scent of salt through Olympus's corridors until clouds thin, revealing a stretch of glittering blue sea. There, leaning against a coral column, stands Poseidon, trident in hand, ocean spray still in his beard. His look says, "I totally won that argument," though Athena, perched nearby with queenly calm, clearly disagrees. This is the story of how one olive tree started a centuries-long sibling feud. Athena and Poseidon, both proud, both powerful, were asked to gift a new city. King Cecrops promised to name it for the god who offered best. What should have been friendly quickly became a divine contest for eternal bragging rights. Poseidon strikes first, his trident hits rock, a spring bursts forth, dazzling in sunlight. Mortals cheer until they taste it. Salt water. Poseidon coughs something about symbolism of dominion, but Athena's smirk says it all. Her turn, she kneels, taps her spear, and from the dry earth rises an olive tree, green, silver, alive. No speech, no boast. Just usefulness. Food, light, peace. Poseidon's wave crashes, Athena's tree endures. Athens, not Poseidonia. Wisdom over impulse. Poseidon never forgot that lesson. Even now, each storm he sends feels like him muttering, "Should have picked me." Divine pride ages badly. Athena planted peace, Poseidon cultivated grudges. You walk closer. They're still arguing. You call that practical? Poseidon booms. "My spring was power, movement, the heartbeat of the world. It represented dehydration." Athena replies, "Mortals are ungrateful. They chose wisely," she says. "Next time, bring drinkable water." Nymphs stifle laughter. A dolphin snickers and swims off. It's not just about gifts now, it's about legacy. Athena became patron of art, philosophy, democracy. Poseidon got tempests and broken coastlines. His fury lived on as earthquakes, floods, the shaking of his trident, poetic for someone hurt his feelings again. They say olive trees still grow on Athena's sacred sites, some thousands of years old. One on the Acropolis is said to descend from her original tree. If true, that's one long "I told you so." Through the clouds below, fishermen pray to Poseidon, scholars to Athena. Two siblings, two forces, rivalry disguised as balance. The Greeks needed both, sea and wisdom, wonder and restraint. Still, Athena's temples faced the sea as if to remind Poseidon who won. And every shipwrecked sailor probably hears him grumble, "Complain to your precious Athena." You pass them as their voices fade into surf and rustling leaves. For all their squabbling, they need each other, like mortals need both land and sea. Historians debate whether the myth hinted at Athens' tension between intellect and naval might. Perhaps Poseidon's storms mirrored the chaos forever testing civilization's calm. That's the beauty of myth. Every tempest can be literal or metaphorical, depending on how much sleep you got. As you drift upward, a seabird passes with an olive branch, perhaps the smallest peace offering in the world. Neither god will accept it, but maybe it's enough for tonight. High above the Aegean, the sea glitters, the olive tree sways, and somewhere beneath the waves, Poseidon keeps a shrine carved with passive-aggressive words. Athens could have been yours, you're starting to see the pattern. On Olympus, the smaller the quarrel, the longer it lasts. Beyond the clouds, faint laughter, light, musical, a little cruel. Aphrodite's voice. Which means the next feud won't be about pride or politics. It'll be about love, lust, and who gets the prettier mortal. You follow the sound. You drift through rose-scented air, every breath a sigh, the light-tinted gold. This part of Olympus smells like perfume counters and heartbreak. At its center lounges Aphrodite, reclining on a seashell couch, doves fluttering around her. She brushes her hair, because of course she does, while across from her stands Persephone, queen of the underworld, crown of glowing pomegranate seeds resting on her dark curls. Two goddesses. One man. Enough drama for centuries. You've stumbled into one of Olympus's pettiest feuds, the custody battle over Adonis. The mortals called him the most beautiful man ever made, essentially a divine hazard sign. Both Aphrodite and Persephone loved him, and since gods can't share nicely, it turned into a cosmic custody dispute. Aphrodite found him first. Depending on the myth, she discovered him as a baby in a myrrh tree, don't ask, or took him as her mortal lover later. She left the infant with Persephone for safekeeping, thinking, what could go wrong? Persephone peeked inside, saw his beauty, and decided, actually, I'm keeping him. Enter Zeus, presiding over Olympus's version of family court. Not exactly the model of romantic restraint, but even he wanted to avoid eternal grudges. His verdict: Adonis would spend 1/3 of the year with Aphrodite, 1/3 with Persephone, and the last third wherever he pleased. Balance, at least on paper, though divine calendars are notoriously flexible. Scholars say the myth mirrors the seasons, life and bloom with Aphrodite, decay and rest with Persephone, and a fleeting balance between. But knowing these two, it was as much pride as poetry. You step closer. Aphrodite flicks her golden hair. He can't thrive in darkness. He belongs where love blossoms. Persephone's smile is frost. And yet, he always returns to me. Roses wilt, black orchids bloom. The air hums with heat and chill. Adonis sits between them, polishing a spear, silently pleading with the universe, don't pick sides. Don't make eye contact. Maybe become a tree. Aphrodite's tone drips honey. He was born of my domain, love, beauty, desire. Without me, mortals would forget how to adore. Persephone's voice cuts sharp. Without me, they'd never learn to let go. Both are right, one embodies passion, the other release, two halves of existence disguised as a love triangle. In ancient festivals called Adonia, women planted fast-growing seeds that withered in days, mourning and celebrating Adonis's cycle of death and rebirth. Poetic, really, that mortal ritual outlived the gods who inspired it, back in Olympus's perfumed haze. The argument reaches operatic heights. Flowers bloom and die in seconds, Zeus's thunder rumbles a distant keep it down. Persephone conjures a pomegranate, rolling it between her fingers. Love ends in shadow, she says softly. Aphrodite's eyes blaze like sunrise. And shadow can't exist without light. It's almost profound, until Adonis sneezes. The tension snaps, they laugh. For a heartbeat, they remember eternity is too long to hold grudges. But this is Olympus, pettiness is renewable energy. Historians still debate who first owned the myth. Some say Adonis died young, gored by a boar sent by jealous Ares, Aphrodite's ex, naturally. Others claim he lived on, crossing between worlds forever. The mythic version of it's complicated. The air steadies again, roses and pomegranates side by side, warmth meeting chill. Maybe peace isn't about winning, just sharing the stage. Aphrodite sighs. Fine. Take him for part of the year. I've mortals to ruin with impossible beauty standards. Persephone smirks. Enjoy your half of the calendar. Adonis exhales, relieved, for now. Doves return, scattering petals that fade from pink to crimson to black before turning to dust. Birth, love, loss, renewal, the endless cycle continues. As you leave, the rose scent cools to pine and moonlight. Ahead, twin shadows move across the clouds, two archers, two siblings, two rivals. Because on Olympus, no family feud ever truly ends. The air cools, carrying pine and night-blooming flowers. Moonlight spills like silver milk across the clouds, revealing two golden silhouettes at Olympus's forested edge, same perfect posture, same I'm the favorite energy, Artemis and Apollo. Twins of Zeus and Leto. Born together, destined to compete forever, two arrows hang mid-air, one sunlit, one moonlit, both claiming the same bullseye carved in a tree. Perfectly balanced, just like them, Artemis narrows her eyes. You aimed after I did. Apollo smirks. I simply aimed better. Classic sibling rivalry, except when these two argue, mortals get plagues or deer transformations. You lean against a column, on Olympus, even perfection needs competition. Scholars still debate whether they represent harmony or opposition, Artemis, the hunt and moon, Apollo, the sun and song. Overlap breeds tension, and they've been one-upping each other since birth. Legend says Artemis was born first and helped deliver her brother, and early I did it first. Apollo never forgot, and she never let him forget. They grew up inseparable, racing through forests, learning to shoot, charming mortals, until affection turned to rivalry. Take Niobe, a mortal queen who mocked their mother Leto, I have more children. The twins responded by slaying all hers. The moral? Don't insult divine family. Then came Orion, Artemis's companion, maybe friend, maybe more. Apollo, disapproving, tricked her into shooting a distant target that turned out to be Orion's head. When she realized, she placed him among the stars. A tragedy born of sibling jealousy that lit the night sky. Some say Apollo wasn't protective, just jealous of losing her attention. On Olympus, envy isn't just romantic, it runs in the family. Tonight, though, the twins seem calm. Apollo strums his lyre, golden fingers weaving notes into the air. Artemis adjusts her silver bow, unimpressed. You could try composing for once, he teases. You could try silence, she replies. Hermes appears just long enough to quip, you two need mortal therapy, before vanishing again. Their bond fascinates you, divine yet painfully human. Artemis calls down moonlight, Apollo ignites dawn, each desperate to prove who shines brighter. The Greeks loved both, Apollo with temples and oracles shaping prophecy, Artemis with forests and vows of freedom. Two halves of human longing, reason and instinct, light and wildness, a gust of wind stirs. Artemis raises her bow. Double or nothing. Apollo grins. Always. Two arrows fly, gold and silver, colliding mid-air in a burst of stardust that rains softly over the mountain. The world pauses between day and night, draw. Artemis says, progress, Apollo grins, the air warms again, their rivalry, for now, at peace. Maybe that's their balance, friction as heartbeat, keeping the cosmos alive. Some scholars even argue they were once one deity, split into twin reflections, conflict as reunion trying to happen. You leave as dawn rises, gilding Artemis's silver crown, turning Apollo's lyre strings to fire. They stand together, radiant in their endless argument, but harmony never lasts here. The flowers fade, the wind thickens with dust. Somewhere below, a mother's grief begins to stir, a goddess whose sorrow once starved the world. You follow the scent of wheat turning to ash, and the light begins to dim. The wind over Olympus turns heavy, carrying the smell of scorched barley and summer gone wrong. You follow the fading warmth down a marble corridor where gold mosaic crumbles into cracked tile. Something ancient, something maternal, hums in the air. You found Demeter, the goddess of grain and harvest sits cross-legged on a worn step, fingers pressed into the soil as if willing life to return. Around her, the plants lie still, half wilted, half frozen. She doesn't look up, just watches the horizon with the hollow patience of loss. You know the story, or at least the bedtime version, of how her daughter Persephone became queen of the underworld. But here, you get the uncensored cut. It began at one of Zeus's endless banquets, where gossip cut sharper than knives. Hades sat apart, brooding over pomegranate wine, eyes fixed on Persephone, spring itself in motion. Demeter had raised her carefully. Too carefully. No wandering, no lovers, no choices. So when Hades came to Zeus with a marriage proposal, Demeter refused before he finished. Zeus, ever the diplomat, and coward, said nothing. Or worse, he nodded. One day, as Persephone gathered flowers, the ground split open. A chariot of black iron rose, and Hades took her before the scent of violets could fade. Demeter searched 9 days and nights, no rest, no food, just grief turned to rage. Even Helios, the sun, had to confess. When she learned the truth, Olympus held its breath. Bring her back, she demanded. Zeus mumbled about arrangements. So Demeter did what no one dared, she went on strike, crops withered. Rivers shrank. Mortals starved. The gods panicked, prayers fade when worshippers die. Dionysus complained there was no grain for wine, Hermes couldn't keep up with the dead, and Zeus muttered, why can't my family ever be normal? In some old hymn, Demeter disguised herself as a mortal nurse, trying to make a baby immortal by fire until the mother screamed. Mortals ruin everything. Eventually, a compromise, Persephone could return, if she hadn't eaten anything below. But she had. 6 pomegranate seeds. Hades claimed innocence, she seemed hungry. And Olympus invented seasonal custody, half the year above with her mother, half below with her husband. Thus, the seasons were born, Demeter's grief and joy looping through time. Demeter rises, brushing dust from her green-streaked gown. He tricked her, she murmurs. The mountain trembles. Then a sprout breaks through the soil. She softens. She's strong. She learned to rule where even light fears to go. Her story feels modern, half protest, half heartbreak. She didn't fight for glory, but for her daughter's choice, even if her love scorched the world. Some call it the first environmental strike, famine as protest. She never forgave Zeus or Hades. At any family reunion, she'd sit far from the fire, glaring at anyone who mentions the underworld. A rustle stirs, Persephone's laughter. Demeter turns, eyes softening. A shadow appears, half sun, half dark. Mother, it whispers. Spring, she breathes. The vision fades. The scent of grain returns, mingling with twilight. Maybe Olympus stays balanced through these negotiations of love, loss, and the occasional famine, as you walk away. A white flower blooms underfoot. That one's for her, Demeter murmurs, but Olympus never stays quiet. Beyond the ridge, the waves rise, and Poseidon's laughter rolls like thunder. Time to get your feet wet. You descend toward the sound of waves. Marble turns to slick, salt-streaked stone. The air grows damp, heavy, charged with storm scent. Olympus blurs into ocean, where clouds kiss sea foam and gods sulk in coral echo chambers. Poseidon's domain, he prefers the ocean floor, palaces gleaming like submerged lightning, but visits Olympus often enough to start feuds and leave puddles. Judging by the thunder in your ribs, he's mad. On a balcony above the Aegean, Poseidon leans on a trident taller than you, hair dripping seawater, beard glowing with plankton. He radiates that dangerous uncle energy, the kind that buys a speedboat for therapy. Zeus gets the sky, he growls. Hades gets the underworld. And I get fish. You resist reminding him he also commands storms and earthquakes. He slams the trident down, thunder obeys. Scholars still argue whether Zeus cheated when the brothers divided the cosmos. Either way, Poseidon never stopped feeling second place. He throws lightning like a toddler, Poseidon mutters, pacing. And they call him king of the gods. The waves crash in agreement. Once, after losing a bet to Zeus, Poseidon built Troy's walls, then sent a sea monster when mortals refused to pay. Divine customer service at its finest, he exhales, mist curling into miniature clouds. And don't even get me started on Athena. Ah yes, the contest for Athens. Poseidon offered a salt spring, some say a horse. Athena offered the olive tree. She won. He never forgave her. I gave them horsepower, he grumbles, she gave them salad dressing. You wisely stay silent. For him, it's never about practicality, it's pride. He's a builder, a breaker, a force, losing to wisdom instead of waves. Historians see the myth as sea versus soil, chaos versus civilization. Storms roar, wreck, fade, and cities remain. Poseidon turns, eyes glowing like whirlpools. You think they remember me, mortal? Every sailor still prays before they sail, you answer. He grins. Fear lasts longer than love. That's his truth. Oceans don't need shrines, just recognition. His feud isn't only with Zeus or Athena, it's with a world that forgets what lies beneath. You glance at the sea, faces seem to form in the foam. The ground trembles. It's fine, Poseidon sighs, though it isn't. Let them keep their olives. I'll keep my storms. A shadow moves behind him, Aphrodite, calm as coral, holding a conch. You're ranting again. I'm expressing justified frustration. The last time you did, half of Crete flooded. Their marriage runs on polite sarcasm, her serenity keeps the oceans from swallowing continents, she smiles at you. Don't mind him. He just needs a good tempest. Poseidon softens. I love the land too, he admits. The cliffs, the rivers. But Zeus drew the line. That's his wound, a god bound by borders. He can move mountains, but not cross one decree. The tide pulls back, revealing shells like tiny crowns. Even the sea remembers its king, he says, half smirking, half sad. Scholars say his envy mirrors ours, the struggle between chaos and control. Power without freedom feels like a cage made of water. Poseidon looks toward Olympus, lightning flickering above. He thinks he rules the world, he murmurs. But let the earth shake once, and we'll see who bows. The ground rumbles. He raises a hand, it stops. Just stretching, he says, grinning. He laughs, booming, delighted, turning danger into play. Relax, mortal. I wouldn't drown a guest. Not on purpose. The sea calms at his wave. Go on, he says. The mountain's full of bigger egos than mine. You climb back up the wet path. Behind you, Aphrodite touches his arm, even the storm bends to her, the sea quiets, but Olympus hums anew. Above, the forge of Hephaestus flickers, sparks scattering across the clouds. Another feud, another scar waiting to speak, you wring seawater from your sleeve. One more god, one more grudge. Typical Olympus. You climb back toward the summit, shoes squeaking on wet marble, the taste of salt still ghosting your lips. Ahead, the air thickens again, not with mist this time, but smoke. Sweet and sharp, curling from an anvil that glows like molten sunset, Hephaestus's forge. You hear it before you see it, hammer on metal, steady as a heartbeat. Sparks flicker through the haze, brief orange constellations fading into dark. The sound is soothing, until you remember whose domain this is, the god of fire, smithing, and long-held grudges. Hephaestus isn't the radiant Olympian type. He's built like the mountain, scarred, solid, functional. His limp has rhythm, almost deliberate. He doesn't look up as you approach. Too focused on shaping molten metal into a delicate golden net. The irony is immediate, historians still argue how he came to limp, born that way, or made that way. One tale says Hera threw him from Olympus at birth, another says Zeus did, after Hephaestus defended her. Either way, he fell 9 days before crashing into the sea. And he never forgot, the sea nymphs, Thetis among them, raised him, teaching craft and patience. When he returned to Olympus, he brought gifts no god could resist, one of which he gave to his mother. Hera sat on the golden throne he made her, and invisible chains locked her in place. Olympus panicked. Zeus demanded her release. Hephaestus refused. "You threw me out," he said. "Now you can live with it." It took Dionysus, ever the trickster, to get him drunk, sling him over a donkey, and parade him home while the gods laughed. You can almost hear that laughter now under the clang of his hammer. He wiped sweat from his brow. "They only cheer when it's funny," he mutters, the net glimmers brighter, his most infamous creation. His wife, Aphrodite, had an affair with Ares. When he found out, he didn't rage. He built a trap, fine as silk but unbreakable. When the lovers met again, it fell, binding them. He called the gods to witness. They came. They laughed. Even Poseidon laughed, though he was the one who finally persuaded Hephaestus to free them. You picture the scene, two divine lovers caught like fish, while Olympus roared. Cruel, yes, but perfect craftsmanship. Hephaestus finally notices you. His eyes, bright under soot, study you. "You're wondering if I regret it," he says. You hesitate. He smiles faintly. "I don't." He gestures to a table cluttered with wonders, golden automatons, lightning humming armor, a goblet that refills itself. "I build what they dream," he murmurs, "and they mock what I am." The gods wear his work, wield his weapons, live in his palaces, yet never see him as equal. On Olympus, talent isn't enough, it's beauty that earns worship. Some say he stayed for peace, others for Aphrodite. You believe neither. He forges to keep from breaking, the firelight carves deep lines into his face. "Ares fights with muscle," he says. "I fight with patience. My battles just take longer to win." You laugh softly. "You've won plenty." He glances up. You'd be surprised how little victory means when no one notices. A golden automaton offers him nectar. He takes it absently, pats its head. "They never tire, never betray," he murmurs. "Sometimes I envy them." You sense the quiet resentment beneath his calm, the god who built everything, yet remains unseen. Olympus would collapse without him. Every shining palace, every bolt of lightning begins in his forge. The gods laugh, but their laughter echoes off his anvils. A thought crosses your mind, Hephaestus as Olympus's underappreciated IT guy, fixing chaos while everyone forgets his name. He grins as if he's heard it. "Don't worry. I prefer it that way." The forge flares, shadows turning ghost-like. In the molten roar, you hear a rhythm, creation, pain, and pride woven as one. Hephaestus doesn't chase beauty. He builds truth, even when it burns. As you leave, the air cools. The clang fades, replaced by laughter, light and unmistakable. Aphrodite. And if Hephaestus burns slow, she burns to consume. You brace yourself. The next feud won't be quiet. The path from Hephaestus's forge shimmers with perfume before you reach its end, roses, myrrh, and something faintly electric, like ozone before lightning. The air hums with desire. Here, it's not just emotion, it's atmosphere. You've entered Aphrodite's domain. She lounges on a marble chaise shaped like frozen seafoam, doves circling overhead, scattering petals that never land. Being near her feels like standing too close to sunlight reflected on water, beautiful, disorienting, dangerous. Without turning, she says, "Let me guess, you've just come from the forge." You nod. She smiles faintly. Hephaestus does love his sob stories. It's a small sentence, but it hums with centuries of irritation. She's tired of being told through someone else's fire. She plucks a rose from the air, turns it into a seashell, and flicks it into a pool. I didn't ask to be born from violence, she murmurs. Ah yes, the myth. When Cronus castrated Uranus and threw the remains into the sea, the foam shimmered, and from it, Aphrodite emerged. Beauty born from blood. I was born from violence, she says, and they made me goddess of love. Imagine that. You can't tell if she's amused or angry, probably both. Aphrodite was never just about romance, she ruled political marriages, strategic seductions, and the thin line between charm and power. Love, for her, was a weapon as much as a gift. You mortals think I'm shallow, she says, twirling her hair. But love has built empires. Love has destroyed them. I just hand you the match, you choose what burns. Her voice is melody edged with steel. They talk about the net, she adds. How clever he was, catching me and Ares. But they never mention how I laughed. Why would I beg? I'd been trapped in a worse cage long before that. You're not sure if she means her marriage or Olympus itself. I never wanted him, she says. Zeus gave me to Hephaestus to stop the others from fighting. A peace treaty in a wedding dress. Her smile is sharp. And they wonder why I prefer the god of war. Ares, impulsive, passionate, gloriously simple. He makes me feel alive, she says softly. Not admired. Alive. You spot a small statue near the pool, two figures, one armored, one draped in silk. They say love makes fools of gods, she whispers. Maybe that's why they hate me. I remind them they're not above it. Even Athena avoids me, she adds. She fears I'll ruin her clarity. But I don't ruin things, I reveal them. Love shows the cracks that were always there. You think of Hephaestus hammering grief into gold, Poseidon sulking in waves, Artemis hiding heartbreak in starlight. She's right, every divine feud orbits her, not because she causes them, but because she embodies what none of them can control. A breeze stirs. Aphrodite rises, the light bending around her. I was born from foam, she says. That's why I never stop moving. The moment I'm still, I become someone's possession again. Do you ever miss peace? You ask, she laughs, a low, musical sound. Peace is boring. What's peace without passion first? Some myths say her child with Ares was Harmonia, harmony born from conflict. Maybe Olympus works that way too. She steps closer, perfume dizzying. Mortals want simple stories, good wives, bad lovers. But truth is Messier. I am beauty, yes. But beauty is just the beginning. After that comes power. She's right. Hera envies her, Zeus fears her, Hermes flirts but never wins. She doesn't hurl thunderbolts, yet her influence ripples farther than any storm. Tell Hephaestus, she says, his chains never held me. They only made me shine brighter. With a flick of her hand, the rose petals burst into golden sparks. You blink, and she's gone, leaving only perfume and laughter. The doves scatter toward Olympus's upper terraces. Far above, you already hear sharp, deliberate footsteps. Hera, the storm behind every scandal, the matriarch of grudges, you sigh. If Aphrodite is the spark, Hera is the wildfire that follows. Time to meet Olympus's original master of pettiness. You trudge along marble terraces, the sun dipping behind Olympus's peaks, painting clouds bruised purple and gold. The air smells faintly of incense and something metallic, foreshadowing. Ahead, the throne room looms, vast and polished, designed to make mortals tremble. Inside, tension hums. Hera, she sits imperious, crown gleaming, eyes sharp enough to slice marble. Every inch of the room whispers dominance. Carved lions, thunder motifs, mosaics of every feud she's won. Hera doesn't rise, the room bends around her. "You've been busy," she says, smooth but lethal. "You could say that," you reply, her lips twitch in amusement, or warning. Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Poseidon. All my children. All tangled in pettiness I must resolve. Hera's specialty, mediation, management, manipulation. Historians argue whether her jealousy toward Zeus's lovers was spite or strategic control. Either way, havoc is neatly packaged as morality. She leans forward, fingers drumming. "I tolerate this mountain," she says softly, "because every feud, every betrayal, every insult is a lesson. And I am the teacher." Her gaze sweeps Olympus, mortal kingdoms, shifting alliances, divine rivalries. Take Aphrodite, endless allure, endless trouble. Hephaestus, brilliant, underappreciated. Poseidon, brooding. Artemis and Apollo, one-upmanship. Demeter, mourning every harvest. Her tone softens. I watch them all. Waiting for the perfect moment to guide, punish, correct. Hera isn't petty, she's pettiness refined into art. Every feud is a stroke on Olympus's canvas. Historians debate, does she orchestrate chaos or merely manage it? Both, a sigh escapes her. Even Zeus fears me. He rules the sky, but I rule hearts, loyalties, grudges. A golden chain dangles from her wrist, a relic of old punishment. Every god has a weakness, she says, and I know them all. She rises, moving with grace and power. Passing you, the room shrinks, the air thickens. I do not start fights, she murmurs, but I finish them. And I ensure no one forgets why they matter, and why I do. The throne room door slams behind her, shaking clouds. You exhale. Hera is gone, yet everywhere, threading through feuds, whispered insults, quiet revenge, twilight softens the terraces. Faint laughter drifts, Aphrodite. Poseidon. Possibly. But Hera remains the calm eye in the storm of pettiness, the queen whose attention can elevate or annihilate. Olympus is exhausting. Ambition hides in every corner, rivalry masks every smile, gifts carry invisible price tags. Zeus is probably oblivious. You breathe in the cool air. Every feud, every argument, every whispered grudge, it's all part of one thing, a mountain that never sleeps, a family that never forgives, a hierarchy testing patience, wit, endurance. You sigh, knowing another feud simmers, ready to bloom. Hera is exhausting, but Olympus is far from done showing its teeth. The night deepens as you wander toward the eastern terrace, marble underfoot cool and smooth, reflecting starlight like liquid silver. A hush settles over Olympus, not peace, but the stillness before the next storm. Somewhere above, Zeus's thunderheads churn, and there he is, Zeus, king of the gods, slouched against a column, ambrosia and authority clinging to him. He doesn't rise, he observes the mountain below as if every feud, every insult is a chess piece waiting for his move. You step closer, careful. His presence is crushing yet magnetic. Every quarrel on Olympus has touched him. Some say he starts the arguments, others argue he merely escalates them. Historians debate whether Zeus is instigator or reluctant referee. A quirky tidbit, Zeus once disguised himself as a swan to pursue a mortal, or sent an eagle to punish a farmer. Dramatic gestures are his specialty, big and small. Tonight, he seems almost bored. Perhaps he's calculating, watching interactions like a general anticipating battle. Apollo and Artemis, Demeter's sorrow, Poseidon's wrath, Aphrodite's cunning, Hephaestus's patient revenge, Hera's manipulations. Zeus has seen every spark. He leans back, gestures lazily with a bolt of lightning. And they wonder why I rule the sky, he mutters, half boast, half commentary. Zeus's feuds are monumental and petty. He can flood cities or argue over seating arrangements. His ego is sword and shield, capable of immense creation and chaos. You remember Lycaon, the mortal king who tricked him. Zeus struck him down, turning him into a wolf. Feuds spill into mortal lives, often without proportionality. A flash of memory, the Trojan War. Zeus orchestrated events with meticulous precision, turning divine squabble into human war. And yet, all worshipped him. You breathe in ozone and power, realizing Zeus's presence is the pulse of Olympus. Without him, petty feuds would lose direction. He notices you staring, raises an eyebrow. Curious about kingship. He asks, a little of both. You reply. Zeus chuckles, rolling across the terraces like distant thunder. Survival isn't about power. It's about knowing when to move and when to watch. Even the strongest can fall. A flash of lightning paints Olympus silver. Zeus grins faintly. Now go. More feuds are waiting. Olympus never sleeps, and neither do its grudges. As you step away, his figure framed by stormlit clouds is awe-inspiring and terrifying. King, instigator, referee, ultimate petty god rolled into one. Below, the laughter of Aphrodite, Poseidon's rumble, Demeter's silence, and Hephaestus's hammering continue their eternal dance. Olympus is alive, bristling, chaotic, and relentless. You exhale, the night air cooling your skin. You've seen pettiness in its purest, divine form, and somehow, the mountain feels almost welcoming. Almost. The path twists downward from the king's terrace, the night deepening and stars pinpricking the dark sky with a faint, cold sparkle. You follow a corridor where the air smells faintly of honey, incense, and something else, something sharp and watchful. It's here, on this quieter slope of Olympus, that Artemis holds her dominion. The huntress. The eternal maiden. The goddess whose grudges are silent but lethal. She moves like a shadow among shadows, bow strung taut, eyes glinting like obsidian. You know her story, how she vowed to remain untouched by love or marriage, how she demands purity, obedience, and reverence from all creatures in her realm. But what most mortals don't realize is that her feuds run deep. Subtle, and often dangerously clever, historians still argue whether Artemis's virginity is literal or symbolic, representing independence and power over one's destiny. Either way, it gives her the freedom to act with a precision that terrifies even the boldest of gods. A quirky tidbit: Artemis once punished a group of hunters not by striking them outright, but by transforming them into birds, forcing them to watch their own villages from treetops forever. They weren't killed, they were immortalized as warnings. Olympus is full of this sort of quiet cruelty, and Artemis's brand is surgical, elegant, and devastating. She doesn't address you, but the forested terraces seem to acknowledge your presence. Rustling and shifting as though whispering secrets. A deer pauses mid-step, eyeing you warily, and you realize that Artemis sees through the smallest details, the twitch of a muscle, the blink of an eye, the tiniest lie. You hear her soft voice, almost lost in the wind. I punish those who betray trust, she murmurs, almost to herself. Even gods forget this sometimes. You recall the story of Actaeon, the mortal hunter who stumbled upon Artemis bathing. He didn't intend disrespect, yet she transformed him into a stag, and his own hounds tore him apart. Some argue it was vengeance, some argue it was a lesson. Either way, the moral is clear: Artemis's feuds are exacting, surgical, and always unforgettable. Nearby, a cluster of silver trees glows faintly, the leaves like tiny mirrors reflecting starlight. You notice small scratches on their bark, marks of arrows, precise, controlled. The goddess hones her skills, yes, but also her patience, waiting for the right moment to let her wrath manifest. Her pettiness is meticulous, even Apollo, she says quietly, and you flinch. Even my twin brother, who sings and dazzles, cannot escape my scrutiny. He forgets discipline, forgets limits. I remind him. It's not malicious. Or maybe it is. Artemis has a way of combining care and retribution so seamlessly that the line blurs. She doesn't bellow or rage like Zeus or Poseidon. She waits, calculates, and acts when the time is perfect. Her feuds are less about spectacle and more about permanence, small, precise, and unforgettable. You notice the constellations above her terraces glimmer differently tonight, almost like a silent applause or warning. Artemis often aligns her actions with the stars, letting the heavens themselves mark her intentions. Some myths suggest she can manipulate the cycles of the moon subtly to influence events, a quiet, cosmic form of pettiness. You step closer to the edge, and a breeze carries a faint laugh. Musical but cold. You realize she's amused. Or perhaps she's testing you, measuring whether a mortal can witness her world without faltering. Either way, it feels like being examined under a divine microscope. The deer, now uneasy, stamps its hoof. Artemis whispers something, barely audible. Even the smallest mistake has consequences. You shiver, understanding that this goddess's grudges are not loud. They are silent, invisible, yet as enduring as the mountains themselves. A misstep, a glance, an unguarded word, they all matter. Some scholars argue Artemis embodies a particular moral order within Olympus, an arbiter of conduct where pettiness serves as instruction rather than chaos. Perhaps, in her domain, the petty feuds aren't about ego, they're about survival, discipline, and respect. You breathe slowly, letting the cool night air fill your lungs. Even in her silence, Artemis communicates more than any shouting god could. Every arrow, every deer, every reflected leaf carries a message. Olympus's feuds are layered, multifaceted, and hers are a delicate, deadly thread in the tapestry. A soft rustle shifts in the trees behind you. The goddess is gone, or perhaps she never moved. Only the stars remain, indifferent witnesses to her unspoken wrath. You step back toward the central terraces, the quiet tension still lingering like the echo of a drawn bowstring. One feud down, or maybe merely observed, and you realize Olympus still hums with hundreds more, invisible yet potent, waiting to entangle whoever dares to walk these slopes. As you ascend back toward the higher terraces, the chill of night brushing your skin, the scent of jasmine and burnt pine follows, a faint reminder that Demeter's domain is near. The goddess of agriculture, mother of Persephone, is quieter than most Olympians, but her feuds carry weight as heavy and enduring as the seasons themselves. You can almost hear the subtle rhythm of growth and decay in the air, a cycle she commands and manipulates with delicate authority. Demeter doesn't sit on a throne or pace the halls. She moves through fields that exist improbably on Olympus itself, rows of wheat and barley bending under an unseen wind, vines crawling along marble walls, fruit hanging heavier than logic permits. She tends to her gardens with a calm intensity, but behind that serenity lies centuries of frustration, grief, and quiet pettiness. Historians still argue whether her grief over Persephone's abduction represents a literal myth or a symbolic reflection of seasonal cycles. Either way, the story has left Olympus's landscape, and its deities, marked forever. A quirky tidbit: Demeter once refused to let crops grow for a year when Hades abducted Persephone. Entire civilizations starved, yet her stubbornness sent a clear message to gods and mortals alike: crossing her comes with consequences. Not violence, necessarily, but disruption so absolute it cannot be ignored. You find her kneeling by a small grove. Hands buried in soil that glows faintly with life. She hums softly, a melody that seems to vibrate the very marble beneath your feet. They think love is a simple matter, she mutters, almost to herself, eyes fixed on the tender shoots emerging from the earth. They don't understand devotion or consequence. Her feud with Hades is legendary. He took Persephone to the underworld, claiming the bargain of pomegranate seeds as a justification. Demeter's response was patient but relentless. Crops withered, the land cried famine, and mortals clamored to the gods for intervention. Every year thereafter, she adjusts the seasons, reminding Olympus of her power and the cost of crossing her, you notice small gestures in her movements, the way she tilts her head when tending young plants, how she lets a vine curl around her wrist. They feel deliberate, almost ceremonial. Even in quiet actions, Demeter's pettiness asserts itself, a refusal to rush, to bend, to forgive, even Zeus, she says softly, almost conspiratorially, can't make the earth yield on my terms. She glances toward the distant king's terrace. Power isn't everything. Influence is subtle. Long-lasting. Terrifying. A curious detail emerges as you watch. Some ancient myths suggest Demeter withheld the gift of grain from certain mortals as punishment for offenses against her temples or cults. It wasn't wrath for spectacle, it was strategic, controlled, precise. The divine equivalent of making someone wait for months just to feel the anticipation, and the anxiety, of scarcity. You step closer, and the goddess smiles faintly, though her eyes remain fixed on the earth. The world thrives because of patience, she whispers. And sometimes, revenge is patience perfected. It's strange, almost comforting. Demeter's feuds don't come with thunder or storms or sudden transformations, they come with consequences that ripple slowly, insidiously, shaping the lives of gods and mortals alike. You watch her stand, brushing soil from her hands as Persephone appears nearby, ethereal and radiant. Their reunion is gentle, yet carries the weight of eternal negotiation, one spent in the underworld, one on Olympus, forever circling each other in a dance of compromise, stubbornness, and deep, unspoken love. Historians still argue whether the myth reflects societal views of motherhood, seasonal cycles, or female agency. Perhaps it's all three. You sense, as you watch, that the essence of her feud is timeless. It isn't about anger, it's about enforcing the balance she knows the world cannot survive without. The night deepens, and the gardens glow faintly under moonlight. You step back slowly, leaving Demeter to her work, her pettiness expressed through cycles, patience, and the quiet but undeniable power of growth and decay. Somewhere below, the echo of Olympus's other grudges murmurs, Aphrodite's charm, Poseidon's temper, Hephaestus's meticulous revenge. And above, Zeus's distant gaze reminds you that every feud, no matter how small, is part of a greater, inescapable web. You inhale deeply, savoring the scent of soil, fruit, and faint jasmine. Olympus is alive, intricate, petty, and beautiful in a way that mortals can only glimpse through myth. The last stretch of the terraces glimmers faintly in the moonlight, where the distant echoes of Olympus's feuds mingle with the soft rustle of divine activity. You approach the domain of Hermes, the fleet-footed trickster, messenger of the gods, and Olympian prankster extraordinaire. Unlike the heavy gravitas of Hera or Demeter, Hermes moves with a lightness that makes the air itself seem playful, teasing, even slightly unstable. He's lounging atop a series of golden steps that shimmer like liquid metal, sandals dangling, wings on his heels quivering with impatience. A cluster of caduceae, a staff entwined with snakes, rests nearby, each one flicking its tongue like impatient sentinels. You realize immediately that his pettiness is less about grudges and more about cleverness, speed, and timing, a featherlight weapon aimed at amusement and mischief alike. Historians still debate whether Hermes' theft of Apollo's cattle as a newborn reflects cunning intelligence or sheer mischief. Either way, the story has become the archetype of the clever trickster, charming, infuriating, and impossible to predict. A quirky tidbit: Hermes was credited with inventing the lyre out of a tortoise shell as part of his early negotiations with Apollo. He traded a simple musical instrument to atone for his mischief, a lesson in how pettiness can double as diplomacy when executed with flair. He flashes you a grin, a glint in his eye that suggests he knows exactly what you're thinking. Careful, he says, voice lilting. The mountain has its rules. But so do I. You can see it in every movement, the rapid pivot of his gaze, the quick adjustment of a winged sandal, the subtle rearrangement of small objects that weren't where they were supposed to be. He's the god whose feuds often begin with laughter and end with exasperation, leaving mortals and gods alike wondering what just happened. Hermes bounds forward suddenly, a blur of motion, and returns with a small bag of golden coins. "For you," he says, tossing it casually. "No strings." "Well, maybe a few invisible ones." Historians still argue whether Hermes' interventions in feuds are manipulations or mere entertainment. Sometimes, it's nearly impossible to distinguish between a trick designed to teach and a prank meant to humiliate. He doesn't answer these questions, he merely acts, and the ripple effects are left for everyone else to untangle. You notice a faint shimmer in the air, tiny illusions, minor enchantments, small deceptions meant to amuse or confuse. Each one is playful, but with a sting. Hermes' pettiness is about subtle embarrassment. Clever exposure, and delighting in chaos with a wink, he leans closer, lowering his voice. "I have a favorite," he confesses. "Watching Ares and Aphrodite squabble when Hephaestus is in the room. The tension is delicious. And they don't even notice me smiling behind the curtain." You can't help but laugh softly. The image is ridiculous, but you also realize that it encapsulates the essence of Olympus: petty feuds, grand displays, endless amusement, and the delicate artistry of manipulation. Hermes darts upwards suddenly, leaving only a faint breeze and the echo of laughter behind. You feel a slight tug in your chest, the realization that Olympus's petty feuds are as varied as its gods. Some are fiery, some strategic, some clever, some endless. And every single one carries its mark on the mountain's psyche. You step back, letting the wind carry his laughter away. Somewhere beyond, the glimmer of Hephaestus's forge, Aphrodite's perfume, Hera's glare, Demeter's soil. And Zeus's distant thunder reminds you that Olympus never rests. The mountain breathes with the weight of its pettiness, each feud a small flame in the larger inferno of immortal egos. Even in silence, you sense movement, strategy, and anticipation, the subtle threads Hermes leaves behind, ready to be tugged, pulled, or unraveled. And you know that somewhere, Olympus waits for the next coral to flare. By now, the summit of Olympus feels less like a destination and more like a living, breathing organism, pulsing with energy, anticipation, and petty grievances that span millennia. You tread carefully along the highest terraces, the cool marble under your feet reflecting starlight like scattered diamonds, each one a tiny witness to the gods' endless squabbles. Every echo you hear, laughter, muttered insults, the clash of divine wills, feels magnified, reverberating through the very bones of the mountain. At this altitude, you catch glimpses of all the gods whose grudges you've witnessed. Poseidon's distant roar merges with Aphrodite's soft laughter. Hephaestus's hammer strikes a measured beat that competes with Hera's sharp commands. Artemis's arrows whistle silently through the air, precise, lethal, yet unseen. And Zeus. His presence is omnipresent, even when absent, a king whose attention simultaneously stifles and provokes. The mountain vibrates with their petty politics, and you realize you've been observing a tapestry far more intricate than you imagined. Some myths suggest that the gods themselves take petty feuds as lessons in strategy and endurance. Historians still argue whether these conflicts were meant to teach morality, display power, or simply entertain an immortal audience. Either way, Olympus thrives on them, nourished like crops by Demeter's subtle hand, sharpened by Hephaestus's patient craft. And colored by Aphrodite's relentless charm. A quirky tidbit floats to mind. Greek vase paintings sometimes depict minor gods and nymphs whispering and gesturing, clearly enacting small intrigues unnoticed by the larger Olympians. Even the lesser figures play roles in these feuds, subtly escalating tensions or smoothing them over with interventions that no mortal or god can entirely trace. Olympus is a web where every thread, however thin, carries consequence. You pause on a terrace, the wind carrying scents of sea, forest, flowers, and molten metal. You think about the absurdity of it all, gods squabbling like children over slights that could topple kingdoms, weaving revenge, strategy, and humor into a single, endless narrative. Yet in the absurdity, there's artistry. Each feud, no matter how petty, carries weight and meaning, shaping the mountain and the world below. Ares storms past, red cape fluttering, muscles tense with frustration at Aphrodite's teasing smile. Hephaestus lumbers after, hammer in hand, muttering something about patience and craft. Hermes zips overhead, invisible and laughing, already setting up the next prank that will ensure chaos continues. Artemis observes silently, poised to correct any mistake. Demeter's soft glow radiates from a distant garden, reminding everyone that time, patience, and consequences are never far behind. And Hera. She watches, omniscient, measuring the unfolding chaos with eyes that see everything and forgive nothing. You realize that Olympus's petty feuds are a kind of cosmic rhythm. There's tension, release, laughter, and occasional ruin, but always continuation. Even when gods retire to sleep, schemes linger in whispers, in shadows, in the turning of stars. You've been a silent witness to this complex ballet, one played out with grace, cruelty, humor, and precision, as you step back from the summit. You take a deep breath of the night air. The mountain hums faintly beneath you, alive with stories, grudges, and pettiness that will outlast you and every mortal who gazes skyward. You've seen the machinery of Olympus, intricate and eternal. Its feuds are petty, yes, but in their pettiness lies an unshakable power, the reminder that even immortals are not above ego, emotion, and pride. And as you turn to descend, you carry with you a strange sense of peace. The mountain, in all its chaos, will always continue. Now, as you leave the terraces behind and step onto the quiet paths descending Olympus, the mountain seems to exhale with you. The tumult of divine egos, the gleam of golden thrones, the subtle fires of old grudges, all of it begins to fade into a gentle, almost musical hum. The night air is cool against your skin, carrying the scent of wildflowers, pine, and the faint tang of salt from Poseidon's distant waves. You breathe it in slowly, letting each inhale soften the tension still lingering in your chest. The god's pettiness, once overwhelming, now feels like a lullaby. A symphony of mischief, rivalry, and immortal imperfection. You imagine Hephaestus hammering softly in the distance, Aphrodite's laughter echoing faintly through the night, Hermes darting invisibly between terraces, and Hera's careful gaze keeping all of Olympus in quiet check. Even Zeus, the ever-present, looming force, seems momentarily at rest, his stormy thoughts softened into distant murmurs. You walk more slowly, allowing the marble and stone beneath your feet to cool, to release the heat of countless debates and quarrels. The stars above glitter gently, no longer as witnesses but as companions in your journey downward. Each step feels lighter, each breath calmer, until the mountain itself seems to cradle you, rocking you with the soft rhythm of a story told in whispers, not shouts. In this moment, the absurdity and brilliance of Olympus's petty feuds, once so dizzying, transform into something almost comforting. Even the smallest act of divine pettiness, the tiniest spark of rivalry, now feels like part of a larger, endless narrative, one that will continue long after you've gone, humming through the air like a secret melody. You realize that even immortals, with all their power, are tethered to the same impulses you carry: pride, passion, humor, and the occasional, unavoidable whim, and so, you slow to a stop, the breeze teasing your hair, the night soft and vast around you. The mountain's heartbeat syncs with yours. You feel a gentle stillness, a reassurance that even amidst chaos, there is rhythm, beauty, and an eternal, subtle grace. The petty feuds of Olympus continue, but for tonight, you are merely a quiet observer, safe in the hush of starlight and the soft exhale of a mountain that never truly sleeps. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let your mind drift, into Olympus, into the stories, and into a sleep carried by the echoes of gods and their never-ending, delightfully petty conflicts.